Connor O'Gara. I hear it back there. Usually, Connor, we got you on the phones. We got our own setup on Radio Row. So there you are. What's going on?
Good to be with you guys. Good to be looking at the beautiful face of one Ty Richardson, something that I, only get to do this time of year. And so, obviously, I, always talk to you guys over the phone, but the chance to be sitting here in front of him with his presence is just an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
I love the sound of your voice right now. What song are y'all going to karaoke later?
That's a great question. Ty and I actually, funny enough, we usually do a duet. Now, I'm not here to throw Ty under the bus. I'm just here to mention that last year, Ty, at the very last minute, had too much going on and wasn't able to join us out for a lovely night of karaoke. Now, I was able to find another partner, and I was able to pivot. Mr. Brightside was the play last year. I'm thinking this year either Springsteen by Eric Church or Dirt on My Boots. Nah, you know what? Let's not do that John Party song. We're going to settle on Springsteen by Eric Church. Ty gave me the thumbs up on that one.
And a few moments we'll be joined by Ole Miss players.
Even though I'm not bitter at all about Ty bailing last year, we can settle on that this year.
Did I just hear the voice of Kevin Trainor there in the background? I know he's not sitting there with you guys because he might not be employed by the athletic department at Arkansas any longer, but he's still going to be SEC moderator. That's at least one thing you can count on, Connor. That didn't change. Good thing.
No, and you know what? I actually had a conversation with him a few years back because he saw me not getting called on during that all-important main media area, and if you've been in that spot, you know what that's like to leave your hand up for a head coach the entire time and not get called on. And so he's one of those guys that, ever since I've had that conversation with him a few years back, he's always kind of pointing and, point the whatever sort of the microphone director. I don't know what the title is for people that do that job, but always pointing them in my direction. So I'm very grateful for his presence as well.
Connor, I have LSU winning it, winning the SEC. Who is who do you got winning the SEC? And then more importantly, who are the 3 or 4 teams you have being in the playoff 12?
Matt, we're very like-minded on this because not only do I also have LSU winning the SEC, I have LSU winning a national championship this year.
Whoa.
And I think it all goes back to the moment Garrett Nussmeier decided that he was returning for this 2025 season, and the sense of urgency we saw from Brian Kelly in the transfer portal was different than anything that we had seen before. And so I do think that combined with the fact that Brian Kelly's a better coach than a lot of people give him credit for, 3-4 against AP top 10 teams during his time at LSU, which is really similar to what we saw from Ryan Day in his 3 seasons prior to winning a national championship this past year. But I have LSU as that team that's going to win the SEC. I have Georgia, the team that LSU will beat in the SEC championship. And then Alabama, I think that you still have to look at what Kalen DeBoer has been able to do so far and say, well, that should be a 10-2 type team. And then Texas. Texas is the one that a lot of people will say coming into the year, they're overhyped with this and that because of Arch Manning. The defense is the number 1 returning unit in all of college football. They've got All-Americans at every single level, and they've got a schedule that really, really lines up for it. So I have 4 from the SEC, and those are, teams that I think are all capable of a national championship, but LSU is the team that I have breaking through.
I was going to ask how you decide how you're voting here, because I feel like so often when it comes to preseason polls, whether it's the national poll or whether it's an SEC poll, it's a matter of you're looking at the roster, maybe not so much the schedule. And as the season goes on, you're going by the games that they've played, not in terms of potential. You're going by the schedule, wins and losses, what has happened in those games. But in the preseason poll, are you looking at team schedules, comparing and saying, well, I think this team compared to that team's got a tougher schedule and just going down it, a win here and a loss there? I mean, you really get into the weeds. So I don't think this is the case of everybody. But my guess is with you're kind of going by what you think each team's conference record's going to be based on their schedule.
Correct. And Phil, my point with this and why I think there's always such pushback, and I remember I came out and hit that line probably my first year that I was doing this, 2017, at least on the SEC side. And one of the things I said is I could see an 8-4 type season, but I made that type of declaration before I went through the schedule of not just Arkansas, and some of Arkansas's opponents, but everybody in the SEC. Until you actually sit there and go through every single game that an SEC team is playing, in my opinion, it's impossible to do the order of finish. And you look at a schedule like Mizzou, Mizzou's schedule could not be more favorable. They don't have a road game until week 8, which just seems impossible. They have a schedule that doesn't have any teams on it that won 10 games last year. And they have what I think could be this year's version of the Indiana schedule last year. So a team like Mizzou might not be better than Florida, but, man, Florida's schedule is still absolutely loaded. And what if they're, in a similar spot? And, that could impact your order of finish as well. So, I mean, I don't need to tell Arkansas fans about how difficult that schedule is this year, but it is certainly lowered where I have them in my order of finish, and it's not as high as it could be based on the talent and production in key spots that they return.
Second best quarterback in the SEC.
Lenore Sellers. I love me some Lenore Sellers, and I think there's such a clear divide right now between the pro Sellers camp and the he's overrated camp. And the pro Sellers camp is the camp that actually watched him play football, because you can't tell me that what he did last year was just kind of casual stuff, especially down the stretch. I think he'd still be running through that Clemson defense if that game didn't end. And there's just so much to like about a guy who was 19 years old last year, did not have a whole lot of help, which Shane Beamer admitted. I mean, their offensive line wasn't one of the best in the SEC by any stretch. I think it was the worst group of receivers that they had in the SEC, and yet still Shane Beamer was saying after the regular season finale win against Clemson, look, I think this guy's the best player in college football. There is, in my opinion, so much to like about his game and why it's going to translate well this year, albeit with a new offensive coordinator, Mike Shula. But I would have him just behind Garrett Nussmeier. I think DJ Lagway could be in that spot where if he wins a Heisman Trophy this year, it wouldn't be a stunning development, but the shoulder issue that he's working through has me a little bit more on the conservative side probably with his projection this year, but I would give Sellers that number 2 spot.
Who is it that everybody wants to hear from? You think of the years that Saban was there, and it's in Alabama and Hoover, and he's treated like a saint. Thinking of Mike Leach. Everybody wanted to hear from Mike Leach, and I remember going into last season thinking, well, who is it that everybody wants to hear from? Who's the rock star here? And I guess you could point to Kirby. I just don't know if he's got that personality nonetheless. Is it Kiffin? Because with Kiffin, he's going to needle some programs, whether it's LSU or specifically Hugh Freeze. And maybe the rock star is not the right term, but the one everybody remembers from media days. Maybe that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, I just had Kiffin. He was down in the main media area just now, and I asked him if he's gotten over the playoff snub. I didn't say playoff snub. Let me rephrase that. I asked him if he had gotten over being left out of the college football playoff yet, thinking that Kiffin would come up with some sort of answer of, I still haven't, I'll let you know when that happens. Lane did not go that route, but he did basically say this system is unfair. We are operating within this certain salary cap, and others are operating outside of it. There's no sort of declaration about, oh, this team's going to get punished, that team's going to get punished. So Lane was definitely the guy that I think a lot of people want to hear from. Diego Pavia is out here wearing a tux. I don't know if you guys have talked about that yet. Diego Pavia is going to be must-see TV. He's going to be down here in the main media area, I believe, in like an hour and a half. But the biggest draw of the week is Arch Manning. I mean, Arch Manning, and seeing the hoopla that it's going to create, I think he's going to have the biggest crowd around his media area since 2013, Johnny Manziel, when he was in Hoover and making his first ever public media appearance, doing so after just a wild movie-like summer. I think that we're going to see Arch Manning have a real, and probably not say much of anything because he's a Manning.
So is there more talk now? Maybe you think of like when Matt went to media days representing the Razorbacks as the quarterback. I would imagine that all the talk was about the team that year and the SEC overall. Even the same thing when folks were asking Houston Nutt questions. There's a lot more to talk about in college sports, specifically college football now, that has nothing to do with the game on the field itself. That's practically all Greg Sankey talked about in his comments earlier today. How much of the conversation is about this season, actual football, and how much of it is the overall arc of the story of what college?
Yeah, I think that there's a certain fatigue. I think based on everything I've seen from our audience, there is a fatigue with talking about revenue sharing era. Is this team operating within the cap? Is this team not? And there is clearly a desire that fans have of wanting to just talk football. And that's one of the beauties of Media Days, is that we actually get to come here and do such a thing. But I think that it is driving so much of the conversation. And there is obviously very important things that we have to continue to address. And Sankey talked about needing to know what those punishments are going to look like from the College Sports Commission. Are we at a place right now where everything is clean and everybody knows what the rules are? No. And Sankey talked about being 14 days into this. It's still incredibly messy. But at the same time, one of the beauties of talking season is that there are 11 quarterbacks that are going to be here at SEC Media Days, with a conference that has been left out of the national championship each of the last 2 years. And there is a sense of urgency and angst that is maybe a little bit more unique than other years. And not having Nick Saban physically here, this will actually be the first time since 2006 that he's not physically at an SEC Media Days, because he was here last year with ESPN. So I do think that there is still going to be a lot of actual football talk this week. But yeah, that other stuff is pretty inevitable.
BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season right around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering information. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline. The game starts here.